Millionaire CEO invites his maid's daughter to play chess for fun. What the little girl said shocked him forever. He thought it would be just a normal Sunday. A quiet day in his giant house. A quick game of chess. Nothing special. But then, a 6-year-old girl looked him straight in the eye and said something that made his entire world stop. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rude. It wasn't even meant to hurt. But it did. Because the words she said were honest. Pure. And they came from a place he had forgotten how to feel. In that moment, a man who had spent his entire life building companies, chasing success, and collecting wealth, suddenly realized just how empty his world really was. You see, he had the house, the cars, the power. But not once did he stop to think about the people quietly moving around him. People like Maria, his maid. She showed up early every morning, cleaned the marble floors, polished the windows, made the place shine. She never asked for anything, never complained. She just did her job and went home. Most days, he didn't even notice her. Until the day she mentioned her daughter. She loves chess, she said softly, almost like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe he was just bored. But for some reason, he said, "Bring her by. I'll play her." No one thought much of it. Not even him. But the moment that little girl walked into the room, wearing a too big sweater, shoes that didn't match, and a serious look on her face, something changed. She didn't act shy. She didn't smile politely. She sat down, set up the board, and got ready to play. And when he asked, "Ready?" she nodded. What happened next wasn't just a game. It was a moment that would flip this man's heart upside down. Because just a few moves into the match, the little girl looked up at him and said, "Dad, we're always hungry at home." He blinked. "What?" She said it again. Not as a joke. Not as a mistake. But like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's when it hit him. She didn't just love chess. She was trying to survive. Have you ever heard a child say something so real, so heartbreaking, that it made you freeze? That's what happened to this man. And what started as a simple game became the beginning of a life-changing decision. A decision that would turn his quiet mansion into a real home. Stick around, because this isn't just a story about a rich man and a game of chess. It's about how one child's honesty uncovered a truth no one wanted to say out loud. And before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe. Because sometimes, the most powerful lessons don't come from boardrooms or books. They come from the mouths of children who just want to be heard. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty hallways of the Harrison mansion. Not the confident stride of the owner, but the gentle, careful steps of someone who understood that her job was to be invisible. Maria Rodriguez had perfected the art of being present without being noticed. She knew exactly how Mr. Harrison liked his coffee, black, no sugar, served in the blue porcelain cup that belonged to his grandmother. She knew he preferred his newspapers folded in half and placed to the left of his breakfast plate. She even knew that he always checked his phone exactly 3 times while eating his morning toast. For 5 years, this had been their routine. Professional. Polite. Distant. Mr. Harrison, or James, though Maria never called him that, was the kind of man you read about in business magazines. At 42, he had built a tech company from nothing and sold it for more money than most people could imagine. His second company was even bigger. His third. Well, that one made him one of the youngest billionaires in the country. But success has a funny way of isolating people. The bigger his bank account grew, the smaller his world became. He had business associates, not friends. He had employees, not family. He had everything, except the things that actually matter. Maria understood loneliness, but for completely different reasons. While Mr. Harrison was lonely by choice, surrounded by luxury, Maria was alone by circumstance, struggling to make ends meet. She worked 6 days a week at the mansion, and on her day off, she cleaned offices downtown. Every penny went toward rent, groceries, and the small room she shared with the most important person in her world. But Mr. Harrison didn't know any of this. In his mind, Maria was simply the efficient, quiet woman who kept his house running smoothly. She arrived on time, did her work perfectly, and left without unnecessary conversation. It was exactly what he preferred. Until one Tuesday morning in October, when everything started to shift. Mr. Harrison was in his study, reviewing reports for an upcoming board meeting, when he heard something unusual. Singing. No, not singing, humming. A soft, gentle melody that seemed to float through the house like a warm breeze. He paused his reading and listened more carefully. The tune was familiar, something from his childhood, though he couldn't place it exactly. There was something incredibly soothing about it, something that made the big empty house feel just a little less cold. When Maria brought his afternoon coffee, he found himself curious in a way he hadn't been in years. "Maria," he said, looking up from his laptop. "That song you were humming earlier, what was it?" Maria's cheeks turned slightly pink. She hadn't realized anyone could hear her. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. I didn't mean to disturb you. It won't happen again." No, he said quickly. "It wasn't disturbing at all. Actually, I found it quite pleasant. It reminded me of something my mother used to hum when I was young." Maria smiled softly. "It's a lullaby my grandmother taught me. I sing it to my—" She stopped herself, looking uncertain. "Tio?" Mr. Harrison prompted gently. Maria hesitated. In 5 years, she had never shared anything personal. But there was something different in Mr. Harrison's voice today. Something genuinely interested, not just politely curious. "To my daughter," she said quietly. "Emily. She's 6. Mr. Harrison set down his coffee cup, surprised. "You have a daughter? I had no idea." "Yes, sir. I try to keep my personal life separate from work." For the first time in 5 years, Mr. Harrison really looked at Maria. Not as an employee, but as a person. He saw the tiredness around her eyes, the way her uniform was perfectly pressed despite being clearly old, the careful way she spoke, as if every word was measured. "What's she like?" he asked. Maria's entire face changed when she talked about Emily. The careful, professional mask slipped away, replaced by pure maternal love. "She's incredible, Mr. Harrison. Smart as a whip. She taught herself to read when she was 4. And she has this amazing ability to see patterns in everything." "Patterns?" "She loves chess," Maria said, then laughed softly. "I know that might sound strange for a 6-year-old, but she's absolutely fascinated by it. I found an old chess set at a thrift store last year, and she just understood it immediately. Like she could see the whole game in her head." Mr. Harrison was intrigued. He had been playing chess since he was 7 years old. It was one of the few activities that still challenged him, one of the few times his mind could truly focus on something other than business. "She really plays chess?" he asked. "Every evening," Maria said, her voice full of pride. "Sometimes we play 3 or 4 games before bedtime. She wins more often than she loses now." There was something in Maria's voice, a mix of pride and sadness that Mr. Harrison couldn't quite understand. But he found himself genuinely curious about this little girl who loved chess and had somehow remained a complete mystery despite her mother working in his house every day for 5 years. As Maria continued her work that afternoon, humming her quiet lullabies, Mr. Harrison found himself thinking about something he hadn't considered in a very long time: what it might be like to have a family. The idea came to him that evening, while he was sitting in his study playing chess against his computer. The game was too easy, too predictable. He found himself wondering what it would be like to play against someone who saw the world differently. Someone like a 6-year-old girl who apparently had a gift for seeing patterns. The next morning, when Maria brought his coffee, Mr. Harrison made a decision that would change everything. "Maria," he said, "I have an unusual request." Maria paused, coffee pot in hand. In 5 years, Mr. Harrison had never made any requests outside of standard household needs. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. What can I do for you?" "I was thinking about what you said yesterday, about Emily loving chess. I'm quite fond of the game myself, and I was wondering." He paused, suddenly feeling uncertain. "Would you consider bringing her here this Sunday? Just for an hour or so. I'd love to meet her, maybe play a game with her." Maria's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, Mr. Harrison, that's very kind of you, but I couldn't. I mean, she's just a little girl, and this is your home, and—" "Maria," Mr. Harrison said gently, "I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as someone who would genuinely enjoy meeting your daughter. No obligations, no pressure. Just a friendly game of chess." Maria looked conflicted. Part of her was touched by Mr. Harrison's interest, but another part of her felt a familiar ache of embarrassment. Emily didn't have nice clothes. Their apartment was tiny and run down. The contrast between their world and Mr. Harrison's felt overwhelming. "Mr. Harrison, you're very generous, but Emily, we don't." Maria struggled to find the right words. "What is it?" Mr. Harrison asked, sensing her hesitation. Maria took a deep breath. Emily doesn't have fancy clothes, sir. And well, she's just a regular little girl from downtown. I'm afraid she might feel out of place here. Mr. Harrison felt something twist in his chest. It hadn't occurred to him that Maria might be worried about such things. In his world, clothing and appearances mattered so much that he'd forgotten there were people who stressed about not having enough nice things to wear. Maria, he said softly, I don't care what Emily wears. If she's half as wonderful as you've described, she could show up in pajamas and I'd be delighted to meet her. Maria smiled, but her worry remained visible. She doesn't have any toys except that old chess set. And she gets nervous around new people sometimes. Then she can bring her chess set, Mr. Harrison said. Whatever makes her comfortable. Still, Maria hesitated. She had spent years creating clear boundaries between her work life and her personal life. Mixing the two felt dangerous, like opening a door that she might not be able to close again. But there was something in Mr. Harrison's voice that she'd never heard before. A loneliness that matched her own. And Emily had been asking lately why she never had playdates like other kids, why they never went to nice places or met new people. Are you sure? Maria asked quietly. Absolutely certain, Mr. Harrison replied. Sunday afternoon, around 2 o'clock? We'll have lunch, play some chess, and I promise to be appropriately impressed by her skills. Maria finally nodded. Okay, but if she gets overwhelmed or uncomfortable, we'll end the visit immediately, Mr. Harrison assured her. This is meant to be fun, not stressful. That night, Maria went home to their small apartment with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She found Emily at their tiny kitchen table, carefully studying the chessboard she'd set up for their evening game. Maria said, sitting down across from her daughter. How would you feel about playing chess with someone new this Sunday? Emily looked up with bright, curious eyes. Someone new? Who? Mr. Harrison, the man I work for. He plays chess too, and he'd like to meet you. Emily considered this seriously. At 6, she had already learned that adults didn't usually pay much attention to kids unless they wanted something. Is he nice? She asked. I think so, Maria said. He seemed very interested when I told him how good you are at chess. Emily's face lit up. She loved chess more than anything, but she rarely got to play with anyone except her mom. The idea of a new opponent was thrilling. Will he be a good player? Emily asked. Maria smiled. I think he'll be a very good player. Probably better than me. Good, Emily said decisively. I like when games are hard. They are more fun that way. As Maria helped Emily get ready for bed that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that Sunday was going to be more important than just a simple chess game. She just wasn't sure why. Meanwhile, across town in his massive house, Mr. Harrison found himself looking forward to Sunday in a way he hadn't anticipated anything in years. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt genuinely excited about meeting someone new. He spent Friday evening setting up the chessboard in his study, making sure everything was perfect. He even bought special cookies from an expensive bakery downtown, the kind with bright frosting that he thought a little girl might enjoy. But as Sunday approached, Mr. Harrison began to feel something unexpected, nervousness. What if Emily didn't like him? What if he didn't know how to talk to a 6-year-old? What if this whole idea was a mistake? He needn't have worried, because what was about to happen would be more wonderful and more heartbreaking than anything he could have imagined. Sunday afternoon arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that makes everything feel possible. Mr. Harrison had changed his shirt 3 times, which was ridiculous for a man who regularly presented to boards of directors without breaking a sweat. But somehow, the idea of meeting a 6-year-old girl had him more nervous than any business meeting ever had. At exactly 2 o'clock, he heard Maria's car in the driveway. He watched from his window as she got out and walked around to the passenger side. When she opened the door, out stepped the smallest person he'd ever seen in his driveway. Emily was tiny, even for a 6-year-old. She wore a clean but faded pink dress that was clearly too big for her, with sleeves that hung past her wrists. Her shoes were scuffed sneakers that had seen better days. But what struck Mr. Harrison most was what she was carrying, an old wooden chess set clutched tightly against her chest like a treasure. She stood close to her mother's side, looking up at the massive house with wide eyes. Even from the window, Mr. Harrison could see her counting the windows, studying the architecture, trying to make sense of a building that was bigger than anything in her neighborhood. When they reached the front door, Mr. Harrison took a deep breath and opened it before they could knock. You must be Emily, he said, crouching down to her eye level. I'm Mr. Harrison. Your mom has told me wonderful things about you. Emily looked at him seriously for a moment, then glanced up at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "Hi," Emily said quietly. "I brought my chess set. Mom said you like to play." "I do indeed," Mr. Harrison said, smiling at the way she held the chess set protectively. "Would you like to see where we could play?" Emily nodded, and Mr. Harrison led them through the house to his study. He watched Emily's reaction as they walked through rooms larger than her entire apartment. Her eyes grew wider with each step, but she didn't say anything, just held her chess set tighter. The study was Mr. Harrison's favorite room, with tall bookshelves, comfortable chairs, and a beautiful chess table near the window. He had set up his expensive marble chess set, but when Emily saw it, she looked uncertain. "Would you prefer to use your chess set?" Mr. Harrison asked, noticing her hesitation. Emily nodded gratefully. "This one knows me," she said, patting the worn wooden box. As Emily set up her pieces, some of which were slightly chipped, others that were clearly replacements that didn't quite match, Mr. Harrison found himself charmed by her careful attention to detail. She placed each piece exactly where it belonged, adjusting them until they were perfectly aligned. "Okay," Emily said, settling into her chair with her legs swinging freely since they didn't reach the floor. "Do you want to be white or black? Why don't you choose?" Mr. Harrison suggested. "I'll be black," Emily said. "I like going second. It gives me time to see what you're thinking." Mr. Harrison made his opening move, a standard king's pawn opening. Emily studied the board for a moment, then responded with a move that surprised him. It wasn't the textbook response, but it was clever, creating possibilities he hadn't expected. As the game progressed, Mr. Harrison found himself genuinely challenged in a way he hadn't been in years. Emily played with an intuitive understanding of the game that was remarkable for someone her age. She didn't just see the current position. She seemed to see 3 or 4 moves ahead, setting up combinations that were both creative and effective. "Where did you learn to play like this?" Mr. Harrison asked after Emily executed a particularly clever tactical sequence. Emily looked up from the board, her face brightening. "Mom taught me the basic moves, but mostly I just figure things out. I like how all the pieces have different jobs, but they have to work together to win." "How often do you play?" "Every night," Emily said, moving her bishop to create a double threat. "Sometimes more if Mom has time before work. We play when the power goes out too." Mr. Harrison paused. "When the power goes out?" Emily nodded casually, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "Sometimes we can't pay for electricity, so we play chess by flashlight. Mom says it makes us better players because we have to remember the whole board in our heads." The simple way Emily said this hit Mr. Harrison like a physical blow. She wasn't complaining or asking for sympathy. She was just explaining her reality, a reality where playing chess by flashlight was a normal part of life. "That sounds like it would be difficult," Mr. Harrison said carefully. Emily shrugged. "It's actually kind of fun. Like we're secret chess masters hiding from the world." Maria, who had been quietly watching from a nearby chair, caught Mr. Harrison's eye and smiled sadly. This was Emily's way of making the best of their situation, turning hardship into adventure. The game continued, and Mr. Harrison found himself genuinely fighting for every advantage. Emily's style was unconventional but effective. She took risks that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. She saw opportunities where he saw only problems. As they neared the endgame, Emily leaned forward in her chair, studying the board intently. Her tongue poked out slightly in concentration, and Mr. Harrison found himself reminded of his own childhood, when chess had been pure joy rather than just another intellectual exercise. "Mr. Harrison," Emily said without looking up from the board, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever get lonely in this big house?" The question was so unexpected, so direct, that Mr. Harrison didn't know how to respond. Adults spent years learning how to avoid asking such personal questions. But Emily asked it with the simple honesty that only children possess. "Yes," he said after a moment. "Sometimes I do." Emily nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Mom gets lonely too, even though we're together. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. Adults think kids don't see things, but we see everything." She moved her queen, putting Mr. Harrison's king in check. "That's why I like chess," she continued. "When you're playing, you're not lonely. You're connected to the other person, even if you don't know them very well." Mr. Harrison studied the board and realized he was in serious trouble. Emily had been setting up this position for the last 5 moves, and he'd been too distracted by their conversation to see it coming. "That's a very wise way to think about chess," he said, making his only possible move. Emily smiled and moved her knight. Checkmate, she said quietly. Mr. Harrison stared at the board in amazement. She'd beaten him. Fairly and decisively. A 6-year-old girl with a second-hand chess set had just defeated a man who'd been playing for 35 years. That was incredible, Emily, he said, meaning every word. You're a remarkable player. Emily beamed with pride, but then her expression grew more serious. Mr. Harrison, can I tell you something? Anything. Emily looked over at her mother, then back at him. What she said next would change everything. We're always hungry at home. The words hung in the air like a confession. Simple, honest, devastating. Mr. Harrison felt his heart stop. Emily, what did you just say? Emily looked at him with those wide, innocent eyes that saw everything and understood more than any 6-year-old should have to. We're always hungry at home, she repeated matter-of-factly. Mom pretends we're not, but I know we are. Mr. Harrison glanced at Maria, who had gone completely pale. She was shaking her head slightly, embarrassed and horrified that Emily had shared something so personal. Emily, sweetheart, Maria said softly, we shouldn't. It's okay, Mom, Emily said, turning to look at her mother with surprising maturity. Mr. Harrison seems nice. And he asked me to tell him something. Mr. Harrison found himself struggling to speak. In his world of board meetings and business deals, problems were solved with strategy and money. But this wasn't a business problem. This was a little girl telling him that she and her mother didn't have enough food. Emily, he said gently, how often are you hungry? Emily thought about this seriously. Most of the time, I guess. We eat, but not very much. Mom gives me most of her food, but she thinks I don't notice. I pretend to be full so she'll eat more. Mr. Harrison felt something breaking inside his chest. He looked at Maria, who was fighting back tears, and then back at Emily, who was explaining their hardship with the same calm tone she'd used to discuss chess strategy. Mom works really hard, Emily continued, apparently deciding that since she'd started sharing, she might as well tell the whole truth. She has 2 jobs, but money is still scary. Sometimes I hear her crying at night when she thinks I'm asleep. I think she cries because she wishes she could give me more things. Emily, please, Maria whispered, but her daughter wasn't finished. I wish I could make money to help her, Emily said, looking directly at Mr. Harrison. That's why I try to be really good at chess. Maybe someday I could win money playing, and then Mom wouldn't have to work so hard. Mr. Harrison sat back in his chair, completely overwhelmed. This little girl, who had just beaten him at chess while wearing shoes that were falling apart, was already thinking about how to take care of her mother. At 6 years old, she was carrying worries that no child should ever have to bear. But then Emily said something that completely shattered what was left of Mr. Harrison's carefully constructed emotional walls. Mr. Harrison, she said, tilting her head to one side, could you maybe be my dad today? The question hit him like lightning. What? Emily's cheeks turned pink, but she pressed on with the fearless honesty that only children possess. Mom told me I don't have a dad. She says some kids just don't, and that's okay. But you're really nice, and you have this big house, and you're good at chess. So maybe, just for today, you could pretend to be my dad. Maria gasped. Emily, you can't just ask. It's okay, Mr. Harrison said quickly, though his voice was barely steady. It's okay. He looked at this tiny girl who had somehow seen straight through to the loneliness he'd been carrying for years. In her child's mind, the solution was simple. He was alone. She didn't have a father, so why not fix both problems at once? Emily, he said carefully, what would a dad do if I were your dad today? Emily's face lit up with excitement. Well, first, a dad would make sure his family wasn't hungry. And maybe he'd live in a house where the lights always work. And he'd play chess every day, not just when there's enough light to see the board. Every word was like a dagger to Mr. Harrison's heart. Not because Emily was trying to hurt him, but because she was describing a life that he could easily provide, while she and her mother struggled with things he'd never even thought about. And, Emily continued, warming to the subject, a dad would probably hug his daughter when she wins at chess, instead of just saying good game and putting the pieces away. Without thinking, Mr. Harrison stood up and knelt beside Emily's chair. Would you like a hug now? He asked softly. Emily nodded and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Mr. Harrison held her gently, feeling her tiny heartbeat against his chest, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. When they separated, Emily looked at him seriously. You're a good pretend dad, she said. You smell like soap and coffee, which is what I thought dads would smell like. Mr. Harrison laughed despite the tears he was fighting back. Thank you, Emily. That's one of the nicest compliments I've ever received. Maria was crying now, quietly but visibly. Years of carefully maintained pride were crumbling as she watched her daughter's hunger for a father figure break Mr. Harrison's heart in real time. I'm sorry, Maria whispered. I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand. No, Mr. Harrison said firmly, standing up but keeping one hand on Emily's shoulder. Don't apologize. She understands more than any of us do. He looked down at Emily, who was reorganizing her chess pieces with careful precision, apparently satisfied that she'd said what needed to be said. Emily, he said, would you like to play another game? Yes, please, Emily said. But this time, maybe you could tell me about what it's like to live in such a big house. Do you ever get scared at night with so many rooms? As they set up for another game, Mr. Harrison found himself wondering how he'd lived 42 years without realizing that the most important conversations in life might come from the smallest people. He was about to learn that Emily wasn't finished surprising him. After Emily won their second game, this time even more convincingly than the first, Mr. Harrison suggested they take a break for snacks. He brought out the fancy cookies he'd bought, along with milk and fresh fruit. Emily's eyes went wide at the spread, and she looked to her mother for permission before taking anything. It's okay, sweetheart, Maria said softly. Mr. Harrison got these especially for you. Emily took one small cookie and bit into it carefully, her face lighting up with delight. This is the best cookie I've ever had, she announced. It tastes like birthday cake. Take as many as you'd like, Mr. Harrison encouraged, but Emily shook her head. Mom taught me to only take what I need, she said seriously. That way there's enough for everyone. The simple statement hit Mr. Harrison hard. Here was a child who had been taught to limit herself even when abundance was offered freely. It spoke to a life where enough was never guaranteed. While Emily carefully ate her single cookie, Mr. Harrison turned to Maria. Could I speak with you privately for a moment? Maria nodded nervously, and they stepped into the hallway while Emily continued studying the chessboard, apparently planning her strategy for their next game. Maria, Mr. Harrison began, I need you to know that I had no idea about your situation at home. Maria's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Mr. Harrison, Emily shouldn't have said those things. I've taught her better than to ask for. She wasn't asking for anything, Mr. Harrison interrupted gently. She was just being honest. Which is more than I can say for myself. Maria looked confused. What do you mean? Mr. Harrison ran a hand through his hair, struggling with how to explain. For 5 years, you've worked in my house, and I never once asked about your life outside these walls. I never wondered if you were okay, if you needed anything, if there was anything I could do to help. I just assumed everything was fine because you never complained. It's not your responsibility to. Isn't it? Mr. Harrison asked. Maria, you've been taking care of my home for 5 years. You've made my life easier and more comfortable every single day. And I never even bothered to learn that you have a daughter who's going hungry. Maria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't want you to know. I was afraid you'd think I was trying to take advantage, or that you'd feel sorry for me and fire me out of discomfort. Tell me about Emily's father, Mr. Harrison said gently. Maria's face crumpled slightly. There's not much to tell. He left when Emily was 2. Said he wasn't ready to be a father, that we were holding him back from his dreams. I haven't heard from him since. And you've been raising her alone ever since. Yes. It's been challenging. I work here 6 days a week, and I clean offices on my day off. But it's still not quite enough. Rent keeps going up, food costs more every month, and Emily's growing so fast I can barely keep her in clothes that fit. Mr. Harrison felt anger rising in his chest, not at Maria, but at himself. At a system that allowed a hard-working woman and her brilliant daughter to struggle while he lived in luxury just floors above where Maria worked every day. Why chess? He asked. How did Emily learn to play so well? Maria's expression softened. I found that old chess set at a thrift store about a year ago. $5 for the whole thing. I thought it might be something educational we could do together that didn't cost money. I learned the basic rules from a book at the library, but Emily, she just understood it immediately. She's incredibly gifted. She is, Maria agreed with obvious pride. But what good is being gifted when you can't afford chess lessons or tournaments or any of the things that could help her develop her talent? I can teach her what little I know, but she's already better than me. Mr. Harrison was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he asked a question that surprised them both. Maria, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? If you could give Emily anything, what would it be? Maria laughed sadly. You mean besides enough food and an apartment where the heat works reliably? Beyond the basics. What dreams do you have for her? I'd want her to go to a good school where they recognize how smart she is. I'd want her to have chess lessons with real teachers who could help her reach her potential. I'd want her to feel safe and secure and loved, without having to worry about adult problems like money and bills. Maria paused. And I'd want her to have a father figure. Someone who could show her that she's worthy of love and attention. From the other room, they heard Emily's voice. Are you talking about me? Because I can hear my name, and Mom always says eavesdropping is rude, but I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I just have good ears. They returned to the study to find Emily had set up a chess puzzle on the board. I made this for you, Mr. Harrison, she said proudly. It's white to move and checkmate in 3 moves. Can you solve it? Mr. Harrison studied the position, impressed by its complexity. It was a genuine puzzle, not something a 6-year-old should have been able to create. Emily, where did you learn to make chess puzzles? I just think about what would be the trickiest way to win, Emily said. Then I work backwards until I find the starting position. As Mr. Harrison worked on the puzzle, Emily climbed back into her chair and looked at him seriously. Mr. Harrison, can I ask you something else? Of course. Do you think it's possible for someone to want a family even if they've never had one? The question was so direct, so perceptive, that Mr. Harrison paused in his analysis of the chess position. What do you mean? Well, I've never had a dad, but I still want one. And you live in this big house all by yourself, so maybe you've never had kids, but maybe you still want them. Mr. Harrison felt his throat tighten. That's a very thoughtful question, Emily. Mom says wanting something and getting it are different things. But I think sometimes, if you want something enough, and if it would make other people happy too, maybe the universe finds a way to make it happen. You're a very wise little girl. Emily grinned. That's what Mom says. She also says I think too much for someone so small. But I can't help it. My brain just keeps working even when I don't want it to. Mr. Harrison solved the chess puzzle. It was indeed checkmate in 3, and elegantly constructed. But as he announced the solution, he found himself thinking that Emily had presented him with a much more complex puzzle than anything on the chessboard. How do you help a family without destroying their pride? How do you fill the emptiness in your own life while respecting the independence of others? How do you become the father figure a child desperately needs without overstepping boundaries that her mother has carefully maintained? As the afternoon wore on, Mr. Harrison realized that Emily hadn't just beaten him at chess. She'd beaten him at something much more important. She'd shown him what he'd been missing all along. That night, Mr. Harrison couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emily's face as she talked about being hungry, or heard her voice asking if he could be her dad for just one day. He kept thinking about Maria, working 2 jobs and still struggling to provide basic necessities for her daughter. By morning, he had made a decision that would change all their lives. Monday morning came, and Maria arrived for work as usual. But when she entered the kitchen to prepare Mr. Harrison's coffee, she found him already sitting at the table with a cup in his hands and an expression she'd never seen before. Maria, he said, I need to talk with you about something important. Maria felt her stomach drop. Mr. Harrison, if this is about yesterday, about Emily saying those things. It is about yesterday, Mr. Harrison said. But not in the way you think. Please, sit down. Maria sat carefully, her hands folded in her lap, preparing herself for the worst. I've been thinking all night about what Emily said, Mr. Harrison began. About being hungry, about wanting a father, about you working so hard but still struggling. And I've realized something. Maria waited, barely breathing. I've spent the last 15 years building companies and making money, telling myself that success meant having more than I could ever spend. But yesterday, a 6-year-old girl showed me what success actually looks like. Maria looked confused. I don't understand. Success isn't about what you have, Mr. Harrison continued. It's about what you give. Emily taught me that in one afternoon. She shared her truth with me. She offered me the chance to be her pretend father, and she showed me more genuine connection than I've felt in years. Mr. Harrison. Please, let me finish, he said gently. I have a proposition for you, but I need you to hear me out completely before you respond. Maria nodded, though she looked increasingly nervous. First, I want to offer you a promotion. Instead of working as my housekeeper, I'd like you to become my household manager. It would mean the same hours, but better pay, significantly better pay. Enough that you wouldn't need your second job. Maria's eyes widened. That's very generous, but… There's more, Mr. Harrison said. I have a guest house on the property that's been sitting empty for years. It's small but comfortable, 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room. I'd like you and Emily to live there, rent-free, as part of your employment package. Maria stared at him in shock. Mr. Harrison, I can't accept charity. It's not charity, Mr. Harrison said firmly. It's practical. If you're going to be managing my household, it makes sense for you to be nearby. And Maria, I'm going to be completely honest with you about something else. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Yesterday was the best day I've had in years. Not because of the chess games, though Emily is remarkably talented, but because for the first time in a very long time, this house felt like a home. There was laughter and conversation and life in these rooms. Maria was crying now, quiet tears that she tried to wipe away discreetly. I'm not asking you to fix my loneliness, Mr. Harrison continued. That's my responsibility. But I am asking if you'd consider letting me be part of Emily's life in a meaningful way. I'd like to arrange for proper chess lessons with a grandmaster. I'd like to make sure she has everything she needs for school. And if she's comfortable with it, I'd like to spend time with her regularly. Why? Maria whispered. Why would you do all this? Mr. Harrison smiled sadly. Because Emily asked me if I could be her dad for one day, and I realize that's exactly what I want to be. Not to replace her real father or to take over your role as her mother, but to be the male figure in her life who shows up consistently, who supports her dreams, and who makes sure she never goes hungry again. Maria was sobbing now, 5 years of carefully maintained composure finally breaking down. Mr. Harrison, you don't understand. Emily gets attached to people quickly. If you change your mind, if you decide this is too much. Maria, Mr. Harrison said, reaching across the table to gently touch her hand. I've made a lot of decisions in my business career. Some good, some bad. But I've never been more certain of anything than I am about this. Emily deserves everything good this world has to offer, and you deserve support in giving it to her. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll let me prove that I'm serious about this commitment. That afternoon, when Maria went home to their tiny apartment, she found Emily waiting by the window, still wearing her school clothes. How was work today, Mom? Emily asked, as she did every day. Different, Maria said, sitting down beside her daughter. Emily, how would you feel about seeing Mr. Harrison again? Emily's face lit up immediately. Really? Can we play chess again? Maybe more than just once, Maria said carefully. He's offered us some opportunities that could change our life. But I need to know how you feel about spending more time with him. Emily considered this with her usual seriousness. Do you trust him, Mom? I think I do, Maria said. But this is a big decision, and it affects both of us. Would we still be together? Always, Maria assured her. Nothing would ever change that. Emily nodded. Then I think it sounds good. Mr. Harrison seems lonely, and we could probably help with that. Plus, he's really good at chess, and I want to get better. There's something else, Maria said. He mentioned getting you real chess lessons, with professional teachers. Emily gasped. Really? Like the players I see on the internet at the library? Really? Emily was quiet for a moment, then asked, Mom, do you think Mr. Harrison really wants to be like a dad to me, or is he just being nice? Maria thought about the way Mr. Harrison's voice had changed when he talked about Emily, the way his entire demeanor had softened. I think he really wants to, sweetheart. But we need to be careful and take things slowly. I understand, Emily said. But Mom, I think it would be okay if he wanted to be my dad for more than just one day. The next morning, Maria gave Mr. Harrison her answer. We'll try it, she said. But slowly, and with clear boundaries. Of course, Mr. Harrison agreed. Whatever makes you both comfortable. There's one more thing, Maria said. Emily wants to ask you something herself. That evening, when Emily arrived at the house for their second chess game, she climbed into her chair and looked at Mr. Harrison seriously. Mr. Harrison, she said, if you're going to be like a dad to me, can I call you something besides Mr. Harrison? It feels too formal for family. Mr. Harrison's throat tightened with emotion. What would you like to call me? Emily thought for a moment. How about Dad James? That way it's like you're my dad, but also still yourself. Dad James, Mr. Harrison repeated, testing the words. I like that very much. Emily grinned and moved her first chess piece. Good. Now, Dad James, prepare to lose at chess again. And as they began their game in the house that was slowly becoming a home, none of them could have imagined how much their lives were about to change. 6 months later, the Harrison estate had transformed into something neither Maria nor James had ever experienced, a real home. The guest house where Maria and Emily now lived was cozy and warm, with Emily's chess books lined up on shelves that James had installed himself. The main house echoed with different sounds now, Emily's laughter, Maria's humming, and the constant click of chess pieces as Emily practiced with her new coach. Grandmaster Vladimir Petrov came twice a week to work with Emily, and he was amazed by her progress. In 40 years of teaching chess, he told James, I have never seen natural talent like this. This child sees the game like a master who has been playing for decades. Emily had grown more confident over the months. Good food, stable housing, and the security of knowing she was wanted had helped her blossom. She was still the same thoughtful, wise beyond her years girl, but now she smiled more freely and spoke up without hesitation. Dad James, she said one evening as they played their regular after-dinner game. Coach Vladimir says there's a big tournament coming up. For kids my age. James looked up from the board where Emily was once again putting him in a difficult position. What kind of tournament? The National Youth Chess Championship, Emily explained, moving her knight to create a fork that would win James's queen. Kids from all over the country compete. Coach Vladimir thinks I should enter. James felt a surge of pride mixed with nervousness. What do you think? Do you want to compete? Emily nodded enthusiastically. I've been practicing really hard, and Coach Vladimir says I play at a level way above my age group. But, she hesitated. But what, sweetheart? What if I'm not as good as I think I am? What if I get there and all the other kids are better? What if I embarrass you and Mom? James reached across the chessboard and took Emily's small hand in his. Emily, listen to me very carefully. You could never embarrass your mother or me. We're proud of you no matter what happens in any tournament. Really? Really? And besides, you've already proven how good you are. You beat me regularly, and I've been playing chess for 35 years. Emily giggled. That's true. I did checkmate you 3 times this week. Exactly. So what do you say? Should we sign you up for this tournament? Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement. Yes. But Dad James, will you and Mom come watch? We wouldn't miss it for anything in the world. 3 weeks later, they found themselves in a large convention center in Chicago, surrounded by hundreds of chess boards and young players from across the country. Emily wore a new dress that Maria had picked out especially for the occasion, navy blue with small white dots, professional but still appropriate for a 7-year-old. There are so many kids, Emily whispered, looking around at the competition. And you're going to do great, Maria assured her, adjusting Emily's collar nervously. James crouched down to Emily's eye level. Remember what Coach Vladimir taught you. Play your game, not their game. Trust your instincts. Emily nodded solemnly. What if I forget everything when I sit down at the board? Then you remember why you love chess, James said. Not because of winning or losing, but because it's beautiful. Because every game tells a story. The tournament began, and Emily was assigned to board 37 in the 7 and under section. James and Maria found seats in the spectator area where they could watch her games. Emily's first opponent was a boy from Texas who had been playing in tournaments for 3 years. He looked confident and experienced as he set up his pieces. Emily looked tiny across from him, but James noticed she had the same focused expression she got during their evening games. The game began, and within 10 moves, it was clear that Emily was playing at a different level than her opponent. She developed her pieces smoothly, controlled the center of the board, and began building pressure on his position. The boy from Texas looked increasingly uncomfortable as Emily's advantage grew. She's remarkable, whispered a woman sitting behind James and Maria. How long has she been playing competitively? This is her first tournament, Maria replied proudly. First tournament, the woman said in amazement. She plays like she's been doing this for years. Emily won her first game in 32 moves. She won her second game even faster. By the end of the first day, she had won all 4 of her games without losing a single piece. That evening, in their hotel room, Emily was buzzing with excitement. Did you see that combination in my 3rd game? And the way I trapped his bishop in game 4? We saw everything, James said, grinning. You were incredible today. Tomorrow's going to be harder, Emily said seriously. Coach Vladimir says the players get stronger in the later rounds. Are you nervous? Maria asked. Emily considered this. A little, but mostly excited. I love playing against people who are really good. It makes me think harder. The second day of the tournament brought tougher opponents, but Emily continued to win. She defeated an 8-year-old girl from California who had won several state championships. She beat a boy from New York whose father was a chess master. By the final round, Emily had won 7 games and was tied for first place with a 9-year-old boy named Marcus from Florida. Marcus had been playing tournament chess for 5 years and was considered the favorite to win the championship. This is it, Emily said as she prepared for the final game. If I win this, I win the whole tournament. And if you don't win? James asked. Then I still had the best weekend of my life playing chess with amazing players, Emily said matter-of-factly. The final game was scheduled for the main stage, with all the other players and spectators gathered around to watch. Emily looked incredibly small sitting across from Marcus, who was nearly twice her size and clearly more experienced. But when the game began, Emily played with a calm confidence that amazed everyone watching. She had studied Marcus's games from earlier rounds and had spotted a pattern in his play. He liked to attack quickly, sometimes sacrificing material for initiative. Emily played a patient, positional game, neutralizing Marcus's attacks and gradually building her own advantage. The game lasted nearly 3 hours, with both players thinking deeply about every move. As the endgame approached, Emily had a slight advantage, an extra pawn and a better king position. But converting that advantage into a win would require precise technique. She's in a winning position, whispered someone in the crowd, but it's not easy to win. Emily studied the position for a long time, then made a quiet move that looked almost passive. Marcus frowned, trying to understand what she was planning. 10 moves later, it became clear. Emily had been setting up a stunning tactical sequence that would force Marcus's resignation. Checkmate in 3 moves, Emily announced quietly. Marcus studied the board, realized she was right, and extended his hand. Good game. You played beautifully. The room erupted in applause as Emily became the youngest player ever to win the National Youth Chess Championship in her age group. As she held up the trophy, a crystal chess piece that was almost as big as she was, Emily looked into the crowd and found James and Maria. Her smile was radiant, not just because she had won, but because she had people who loved her there to share the moment. This is for my mom and my dad, James, she said into the microphone during the awards ceremony. They believed in me even when I was just a little girl who played chess by flashlight. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. 2 years later, the Harrison estate bore little resemblance to the cold, empty mansion it had once been. The sounds of family life filled every room. Emily practicing piano. She had discovered a love for music to go along with her chess talent. Maria singing while she cooked dinner, and James's laughter as Emily beat him at yet another game. Emily was 9 now, and her chess career was flourishing. She had won 3 more national championships and was being invited to international tournaments. But more importantly, she was thriving as a child who finally felt secure and loved. Dad, James, Emily said one evening as they sat in the study that had become their traditional chess room. Can I ask you something important? Always, James replied, looking up from the business papers he was reviewing. Do you remember the first day I came here? When I asked if you could be my dad for just one day. I remember every detail of that day. Emily smiled. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. That day, I thought having a dad for just one day would be the most amazing thing ever. But now I know something better. What's that? Having a dad forever is even more amazing than I imagined. James felt his throat tighten with emotion. Over the past 2 years, he had legally adopted Emily, with her biological father having signed away his rights without contest. The adoption had been finalized 6 months ago, making their family official in the eyes of the law. You know what the best part is? Emily continued, setting up the chess board for their evening game. Tell me. The best part is that we all saved each other. You were lonely, and we helped fix that. Mom was worried about taking care of me, and you helped fix that. And I wanted a dad, and you fixed that too. Maria appeared in the doorway, drawn by the conversation. She was wearing a simple dress that James had insisted on buying her, though she still protested when he wanted to spend money on her. Their relationship had evolved carefully over the past 2 years, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Are you two getting philosophical again? Maria asked, settling into her favorite chair near the chess table. Emily's explaining how we all rescued each other, James said. It's true, Emily said seriously. Remember how quiet this house used to be? Now it's full of music and talking and chess games and Mom's cooking. It's like we turned on all the lights. Speaking of lights, Maria said, Emily, it's almost your bedtime. Can we play one quick game first? Emily asked. I want to show Dad James this new opening Coach Vladimir taught me. One quick game, James agreed. But when your mom says bedtime, bedtime it is. As they played, James marveled at how naturally Emily combined advanced chess concepts with childlike enthusiasm. She was still the same girl who had beaten him with a worn wooden chess set, but now she played with a confidence born of knowing she was loved and supported. Dad James, Emily said as she developed her pieces, I've been thinking about something else too. What's that, sweetheart? When I'm older and I become a chess grandmaster, I want to start a program to teach chess to kids who can't afford lessons. Kids like I used to be. Maria smiled from her chair. That sounds like a wonderful idea. I want to call it Lights on Chess, Emily continued. Because chess should be for everyone, not just kids whose families have money. And because sometimes the best games happen when you're playing by flashlight. James looked at his daughter, and she was truly his daughter now, and felt overwhelmed by pride. Not just for her chess abilities, but for the compassionate, thoughtful person she was becoming. I think that's a brilliant idea, he said. And when you're ready to start that program, I'll help you make it happen. Really? Really? But first, you need to focus on becoming that grandmaster. Emily grinned and moved her queen, putting James in check. Don't worry about that part. I've got it covered. As Maria tucked Emily into bed that night, Emily asked the question she'd been asking for the past year. Mom, are you happy? Happier than I ever thought possible, Maria replied honestly. Good. Because Dad James is happy too. I can tell because he smiles with his eyes now, not just his mouth. You're very observant, little one. I have to be. I'm the one who brought this family together, so I have to make sure everyone stays happy. Maria laughed. You don't have to take care of everyone, Emily. That's what adults are for. I know, but I like taking care of people I love. It makes me feel good inside. After Emily was asleep, Maria and James sat together on the porch of the guest house, looking up at the stars. It had become their evening ritual, a quiet time to talk about the day and enjoy the peace of their unexpected life together. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't invited Emily to play chess that day? Maria asked. Every day, James admitted. I think about how close I came to missing all of this. How I almost let pride and routine keep me from the best thing that ever happened to me. She saved us both, didn't she? Emily has a gift for seeing what people need, James said. That first day, she saw that I was lonely, and she offered to let me be her dad. Not because she needed something from me, but because she could see I needed something from her. Love, Maria said simply. Exactly. I spent 42 years thinking that success meant accumulating things. Emily taught me that success means sharing your life with people who matter. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood settling down for the night. In the distance, they could see the lights of the city where Maria used to worry about paying rent and Emily used to play chess by flashlight. You know what Emily told me today? Maria said eventually. What? She said that our old apartment wasn't really home, even though we lived there for years. She said home isn't a place, it's the people who love you unconditionally. James smiled. She's right. This house was just a building until you and Emily filled it with life. I love you, Maria said quietly. It was still new, this openness between them, but it felt as natural as breathing. I love you too, James replied. Both of you. More than I knew was possible. From somewhere in the house, they heard the soft sound of Emily talking in her sleep. She was probably dreaming about chess games or piano lessons or the international tournament she'd been invited to next month. But whatever she was dreaming about, she was dreaming it in a house where the lights never went out, where love lived in every room, and where a little girl's simple question, "Could you maybe be my dad today?" had changed 3 lives forever. Sometimes, Maria said, I think about that first chess game, when Emily told you we were always hungry. I was so embarrassed, but now I'm grateful she was brave enough to tell the truth. Children see things so clearly, James said. Adults spend so much time protecting themselves that we forget how to ask for what we really need. What do you think Emily really needed that day? James considered this. I think she needed exactly what she asked for, someone to be her dad. Not just for one day, but forever. She was brave enough to ask for the impossible, and somehow the universe made it possible. As they prepared to go inside, Maria looked back at the main house where a single light still glowed in the study window, The room where it all began with a chess game between a lonely billionaire and a 6-year-old girl with a worn wooden chess set. "The lights never go out anymore," she observed. "No," James agreed, taking her hand as they walked toward the house. "They never will again." And in the morning, Emily would wake up to the sound of her parents making breakfast together, and she would run downstairs to a kitchen full of warmth and laughter. And she would remember that sometimes the best things in life come from the simplest acts of courage. Like asking a stranger if he could be your dad for just one day. So there you have it. The story of how a simple invitation to play chess changed 3 lives forever. Emily went on to become the youngest grandmaster in American history at age 12. She started her Lights on Chess program, which has now taught chess to over 10,000 children who couldn't otherwise afford lessons. Maria became much more than a household manager. She became the heart of a home that had been missing love for too many years. And James? Well, James learned that the greatest success isn't measured in money or achievements. It's measured in the moments when a little girl calls you Dad James, and means it with her whole heart. Their story reminds us that family isn't always about blood relations. Sometimes it's about people who choose to love each other unconditionally. Sometimes it's about being brave enough to ask for what you need. And sometimes it's about recognizing that the person standing right in front of you might be exactly what's missing from your life. Emily was right about one thing: love doesn't knock politely and wait for permission. Sometimes it checkmates you when you least expect it. What would you have done if you were in James's position? What would you do if a child asked you to be their parent for just one day? Tell us in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more powerful stories about the connections that change our lives. And remember, sometimes the most important conversations happen across a chessboard, and sometimes the most profound questions come from the smallest voices. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Like if this story moved you. Comment with your thoughts below.